All right, so this is going to be a tutorial for how to port a model to Halo 3, and the example I'm going to use is this rocket ammo from Halo 2 Anniversary, and I'm going to start out by saying like the most fundamental foundational elements I'm not going to go over. So like, yeah, you need Blender. You should probably understand how to use Blender to some degree, understand the controls and have the proper add-ons that you need. I'm using this tool Index to get Halo 2 Anniversary assets. You might want to look into that. But this is supposed to be, if you have the tools you need, how do you actually use them to port something into Halo 3? Not a complete in-depth guide, just because that sounds a little boring and annoying. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come up here and we're going to export, and I'm going to export it as an FBX. I'm going to export the textures as TIFF files and the normal map format as DirectX because that's what Halo uses. And so I don't have to then go open those files and invert the green channels and all that. But it is worth noting that if you have something that is in OpenGL format, all you need to do is open that normal map and invert the green channel. And then that is now in DirectX format, and you can go ahead and use that in Halo. And then image files have to be in TIFF because that's just what they use for their textures. So I have a whole extracted Halo 2A folder, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it Rocket Ammo. And I'm going to go in here, and this is where I'm going to export the model and all of the textures. So if I then open up my file explorer and I work my way in there. So you're also going to get these TD files. I don't really know exactly why they're exported or what they're for, but you don't really need them, at least as far as I know. So gonna open Blender, get that ready in the background, and then I'm also gonna have to find Halo 3's rocket ammo file. Okay. I wasn't sure to find it. So I'm going to, from the H3EK, I'm going to type CMD, and that's going to open tool. And then I'm going to come back here and I'm going to copy the directory, and I'm going to write tool extract import info. And I don't know if you need quotes, but sometimes I need quotes and sometimes I don't. So I put it in quotes always because that never gives me a problem. And then I need to do the rocket launcher ammo.render model. And okay, that's now extracted it. So I'm going to come in here, delete the cube because we always delete the cube. And I'm just going to go ahead and save this as H2A rocket launcher ammo. Import that file. Just going to. Okay, so I've got the Halo 3 rocket launcher ammo here ready to go. And so we're going to just use that as the base for the Halo 2 Anniversary model. And one thing you'll probably notice is that everything that you extract with tool is like really small. So I'm going to go ahead and scale this up if I can. Oh my God, it's small. Okay. Okay, that seems pretty well lined up. Is that? Okay, so now we're going to look at what we have going on in the original and then replicate that down here. So this has a bone B frame, and that's the only bone. And I'm assuming that everything is, you can come in here and you can select and see exactly what is each vertex group. And so something like this is simple, one bone, everything's parented to B frame. So that means we're going to come here and assign everything to B frame. Another way to do that is to change the bone name as well. You can do either one because you actually only need the vertex groups to be named the same. But if you come in here and rename the bones, that will assign it to the new name of the vertex group because they're linked. So sometimes in a case like this where it's simple, I just change the vertex group and leave the bone the same because I don't really need it. And then this here, this is just an unnecessary thing. So anyway, now we're going to come in here again, and we're going to look at the halo regions. And so we have base case, and we have base decal. So come in here, and I don't think that this has a dedicated decal. So we don't need to worry about the decal, but we can do base case, because I think the decal is just, oh, not base decal, base case. All right, so now we have this model, and it's got the same vertex groups and halo regions as this. And so we're going to hit Alt-P to clear and keep transformation. And then here we're going to control click on the original bone, Control-P, armature to form. And I always like to come in, go to pose mode, and just make sure that it's moving around properly and everything's parented correctly. So we've got the Halo 2 Anniversary rocket launcher ammo with the original armature, the original marker for the ground point. I'm going to come in and hide the original model, the rocket launcher ammo. Now I'm going to come into materials, and it has one material, and I'm just going to add a close parenthesis at the end, because that I forget what it's called, but it stops it from like compressing or whatever. I'm forgetting the words. There's a lot of good information on the C20 Reclaimer site, and it tells you exactly what that means, but you pretty much want to put that on all of your materials for Halo stuff. All right, so now that we've got everything set up, it should be working. I'm gonna file export as a JMS, and I'm going to Halo 3 game title and uncheck everything except the export render geometry, and we're gonna export it into the data folder. And I have it set up H2A objects levels shared, but that is not a very useful folder path. You should probably try to replicate like whatever you're trying to replace. That's gonna work better. And then I'm going to come in here to H2A rocket launcher ammo. And then there's a render folder, because I'm doing a render model. If you're doing a collision model, you want a collision folder. If you're doing a physics model, you want a physics folder, because you're going to direct to just this folder, the H2A rocket launcher, and then it's going to read from the render, collision, whatever. And so I'm going to export that as a JMS. And I forgot to get rid of the other armature, and if you have another armature, it won't let you export, so always make sure to do that. All right, anyway, got to reset this, and now I should be able to export, and we're good. So the model itself is functional in theory. So I'm going to open a Soyuz, and I'm going to import model. I'm going to check PRT render and generate shader tags, and then I'm going to direct to that folder we just had. Select folder, import model. Then I'm just going to unclick generate shader tag so it's not on. Now I'm in Sapien. I've already got it loaded up. I use the arc a lot because I don't know. I saw Chunkier Bean saying he uses it because it's got decent lighting, and I agree. It gives you a lot of different lighting to look at models in, because there's a bunch of dark areas over there. There's like really bright areas over here, and it's just generally kind of nice to get simple, easy variation of lighting to look at your models. So it's a scenery file, right? Equipment. It's equipment. All right, so I'm going to open a new folder and go again to that folder we created. Well, the tags folder that we created from the data folder. Okay, and I'm going to copy the equipment and model, and then right click, rename H2A. So then I'm going to open Gorilla, and I'm going to refresh and find where this is. And open the equipment and model folders. Then I'm going to copy this directory and open the render model and direct to the new render model we just created. Save that, close it out, and then direct this to the model folder in there. Okay, so now I'm going to go to equipment, edit types, add, and find my new rocket launcher ammo. Okay, so right click to place that and see if the model is here, and it is, and it has physics, which means that our regions are set up properly, our bones are set up properly. It looks okay. I'm wondering if we're going to want PRT because like this area looks really dark, but that is something to decide later when we get to setting up shaders. And by later, I mean like right now. So we've got a bunch of different files here, and this I don't think is something that Halo 3 really uses. This, and this definitely things Halo 3 uses, but we also want to set up PBR shaders, so we want more than that. So for starters, I'm going to copy the ammo, diffuse, and normal into, if I come over to here, I'm going to create a bitmaps folder, and I'm going to paste them in here because we're going to use those just as they are. And also the snow 01 and the det paint 02, those are all going to be used as they are. But from this specular map here, we're going to create two new kinds of textures that we will use for the PBR shaders. So I'm going to open that with GIMP. All right, so first one I'm going to do colors, components, decompose, RGBA, click OK, and then colors, components, compose, RGB. I don't know if you need to remove the alpha channel for this specular map to work, but I generally do just because it's, I don't know, it feels better. Export this as rocket launcher ammo spec.tiff, not PNG, and then I'm going to work my way back to that bitmaps folder once again. What? Didn't I have a bitmaps folder? Did I create it in the wrong place? Oh my god. I made it in the tags folder. Okay. Okay, now bitmaps, and we'll export it there. And so there's our specular map. Gonna come back here, copy the alpha channel, paste it into the green channel, and colors invert. Come down to blue and fill that with white. Colors, components, compose, RGB, and then you have a map that looks like this. File, export as rocket launcher ammo control.tiff. Gonna export this to this bitmaps folder, export it. Now I'm gonna come back to, oh my god, I have a lot of tools. Sorry, I was working with audio stuff, trying to fix that bug I'm getting. And so I have a lot. Oh, and I closed the wrong one. So bitmaps, copy this directory, not the data part. You need the tags part when we're extracting stuff, but not the data part because tool is usually working with the data folder. So you kind of need to tell it when you're not working with the data folder. So the command is tool bitmaps and then that directory, and it imports all of them. All right. And so we're going to come in here, shaders, and I'm going to just real quick, rather than go through a bunch of menus, copy that directory. So we're going to set this to default. We'll do detailed, specular from diffuse. And then we're going to want to make sure cook torrents PBR maps. And again, this is for only PBR maps. A lot of Covenant stuff, you're going to use two-lobe Phong. And when you're using two-lobe Phong, you don't have the controller specular maps, so you don't need to worry about quite as much work with the texture files themselves. Environment mapping, we're going to go with dynamic. No, come on. Dynamic. Self-illumination off because this doesn't have any self-illumination. But if it does, it's just usually you're going to use simple. And if not, you can. I think the best practice is to refer to the similar shaders for what you're replacing. Blend mode opaque, parallax off, first person never. That's fine. Off, off, off. Okay. Base map. Going to come in here, and that's going to be the 01 bump map. It's going to be the NM, and so this has NM because that's abbreviating, normal. And so typically, if you do _z bump, that will import it as a z bump map automatically. But if you don't want to go through with that, or you forget to, or whatever, you come in here and you can just select ZBrush bump map from bump map, and then re-import bump map. A lot of people say, you know, use force pretty and 24-bit color plus 8-bit alpha. But I have found that when I do that with my bitmaps, I start getting maps that won't load. So I just leave that as is, because for some reason changing those settings just like breaks my game. But anyway, now we have this as a Z bump, and check order 3 area specular and use material texture. I mean, you can play around with whether or not you want the order 3 area specular and whether it looks better with it or without it, but you need the material texture because we're using a material texture, which is the control map. And then spec tint map, that's probably, as you would guess, the specular map. I'm going to save that. All right, so then we have detail maps that it used. The snow, was it snow or paint that was? I'm going to view the bitmap, and okay, so that's the bump map. So here, going to use, I don't know why I did that. We're going to use the paint, and here we're going to use the snow. And once again, we're going to change the snow to a ZBrush bump map, and then re-import bitmap, save, and we'll take a look at what that looks like by default. So it looks all right. So one other important setting, for example, is the albedo blend. It's set to 0 by default. Let's try what does it look like with 1. And so here's an instance where it really doesn't matter. But essentially this means like how much of the albedo map are you using, how much of the, you know, so sometimes you'll find that you want to play around with that and find a particular value, but a lot of the time it doesn't really matter that much. Another thing is I like to make, I usually keep it to scale uniform because I'm not playing around with it too much. But the way that the detail maps and the bump maps work is that when you have, you know, this one image here, so this whole model is UV unwrapped to this image, and it basically just takes that square image and places it, and it's just using that as another map. But because it's such a different scale, usually the default scale is just not very good. So change that to 16 and look at it, and you can see that now it looks so much better just because it's not a huge overt like bumpy mess all over the place, because you've just got it on here one time. So let's take this down to 4, both of them down to 4, see what that looks like. And so now it's a little more visible, but it's not quite as obvious. And I think, you know, it's good to play around and see exactly what kind of scale you like. We can try 8, see how that looks. And I feel like that gets a little too fine. So I'm going to go back to 4. And I think that looks pretty good. You can kind of see that there's some sort of texture going on with it from a distance, but it's not too obvious. And then when you get up close, it's also not too overt. So yeah, we've got the Halo 2A spanker ammo going on. And because I'm not just creating a new item, I'm like replacing a bunch of stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open both of these folders, and I am going to copy the equipment. And well, I mean, it depends on how you want to do it. You can do the equipment, you can do the model, you can do both of them. So for example, I'll just take both of these, place them in here, delete the equipment, delete the model, rename both of these to the original name without the H2A, and then the default rocket launcher ammo is replaced with this. Although one funny thing you'll probably be able to see is we already have the rocket launcher ammo in here. And so when you change it, it actually isn't changed because I don't know. I think it's something with the fact that technically this equipment model isn't actually what's being referenced. It's that deleted one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to completely reload Sapien, or reload this map. All right, we've got Sapien reloaded. I'm going to come back to the equipment and rocket launcher ammo. So we can see it is in fact fully replaced, which means now that anywhere that this rocket launcher ammo appears in Halo 3 when we compile a new map, this Halo 2 anniversary model will be there. So yeah, this was a very, very simple example. Obviously, you know, it's got one bone, doesn't have animations. It's very, very simple and straightforward, and there's like one shader to work with, but you can pretty much apply this to whatever you're trying to do. There's definitely a lot more you can play around with in the shaders, but a lot of times when you're using Halo 2 Anniversary assets or anything with PBR maps, you're kind of good to go without changing a whole lot. If you're not using like a Halo 2 Anniversary asset, it's going to be a bit of a different process to create the control and specular maps, but it's the same principles. And I will say, if you've only got like a diffuse map and a normal map, then using Materialize is a great way to get metallic, smoothness, and ambient occlusion maps that you can tweak and work pretty well to create those specular and control maps. I've used it a lot for, frankly, a lot of stuff that's not from Halo 2A, because a lot of stuff from other Halo games or that you can get on like Sketchfab or whatever might not have other maps. They might not have a metallic map. They might not have specular maps. I've even found sometimes that like using Materialize to create new metallic, smoothness, and AO maps works better than the ones I get from pre-created models, because I don't know, sometimes they can be very flat and they don't work very well and they look very non-dynamic and just boring. But every model is going to be different. If you need more like basic information or you want to see other processes, I would definitely recommend like Computer Graphics or the Chunkier Bean. The Chunkier Bean has a good handful of live streams that are also really useful to just like actually watch the process like front to back and see all the little back and forth details going on. But yeah, I've been recording for 40 minutes somehow, and that makes no sense to me because I have just been rambling. I don't know how to end this video, but hopefully you found it useful.